Most men haven't been trained how to have open, honest conversation about purpose, about mission, about getting older, about the fact that all these things matter even more as you get older. I sat down with one of my great friends recently, Doug, to talk about these exact subjects and to try to unpack why our unique friendship has worked so well and helped us to be strong through different seasons on the masculine journey. Why don't you sit down and join us for that now? So I'm here with my friend Doug. Welcome, Doug.
Hi there.
Hi there. We're talking about a lot of different things. We're talking about isolation. We're talking about how to break the silence in conversation. We're talking about the fact that purpose can be a little bit difficult for men generally. But we're also talking about the context that you and I find ourselves in our delightful 50s.
Yes.
Which we've talked a lot in the past about how all these things of purpose and connection, they're very important for men, but we want to highlight this point as well that as men get older, it's probably more important, but maybe as well it's harder for men. So give us your thoughts to start with about that, core concept. Does it get harder for men as we get older to stay connected, to talk about challenges, to be vulnerable, etc.? And is it also more important?
Yeah, that's a big topic.
It is a big topic. Yeah,
It's a big topic. Yeah, I think there's definitely a shift. There's a shift
Right.
in the way we see the world. There's
Yep.
a shift in the way we work and how our bodies work.
Yes.
And I think, like I know for myself, like you can get blindsided. Suddenly
Right.
you're on this track that
Yes.
you're not familiar with, and you start to lose your reference points or your bearings.
Right. Yep.
And I think as a male, our tendency is like when you don't know how to deal with something or you don't know how it really works, what you do is you retreat,
Yes.
and you pull back into yourself and get your bearings again. And the difficulty with that is that unless you're conscious of it, you can end up in a place where there's no one to talk to about it or no one to refer to. What do I do next?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because there's a lot of pressures, right? Like, as we know, men face a lot of pressures at all ages, and it's difficult for men to navigate new world pressures. I think there's always been a burden on men about their masculinity, the need to be masculine in a difficult world. But it seems like those challenges they're getting more complex. I don't know if they're getting more in quantity, but it's complex. And I even had a conversation on the channel recently with 3 guys in their 20s. And without me provoking it too much, they sort of offered up that idea that it's difficult for young guys coming out of their teens and into their 20s to know what to do about what is masculinity and like,
Right.
do I even need to address it? Do I just leave it be? So that's way before we even get to have you got someone to lean on and talk to when you hit a wall in your life. And I think it's a big challenge for guys around getting the handles. What can I locate where I am? Like you sort of touched on that, right? Like, do guys even know where they're positioned in the journey?
Yeah. Well, I think, getting into your 50s, you're suddenly looking at things that you've not really looked at before. I know, you talk about the young guys and getting the bearing on masculinity. One of the big things of being masculine is being a producer or producing.
Yes.
You find your vocation or you find where the money is, and you go hunting for the money and you produce for yourself or your family.
Right.
And you make a career of it. And you get to a point where you're good at what you do.
Yes.
Whatever it is, whatever the chosen vocation is, and that starts to become an identity in itself. That you wrap yourself around. I do, and you've done it yourself. You go to any gathering where there's men. And you always ask, what do you do? And it's almost code for who are you?
Yes.
What have you built yourself into?
Right.
And then, like I'm getting to an age now, I'm late 50s, where you're starting to see on the horizon closer and closer. It's like the ability to produce is becoming less and less important.
Right.
Like the family's moved away.
Yes.
Yes, there's this pressure to provide for retirement and superannuation, all that sort of stuff. But the identity that comes from it doesn't have the bite that it used to have.
Right.
And I've observed in friends of mine and also in myself, it's like you can get lost
Right.
in if who I am has been my vocation for so long.
Yes.
When you remove that, it's like, have I actually cultivated my inner life? Have I actually cultivated my reference points, that actually pivot around an internal mechanism rather than something that's on the outside?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a scary prospect for guys, in the sense that, so as you know, I just turned 50 this year, and I'm right in the middle of what is called Gen X. And everyone's an individual, and I get that. But, we're described, our generation, as being very noble and faithful to the company and very career-focused. And that thing you said about my identity is what I do. And I'm looking at a lot of my age-based contemporaries who've lived in that headspace, their whole adult life. And then at some point in time, that mask is going to get ripped away. Either by retirement or redundancy or health or some kind of life crisis or trauma. And I'm really deeply troubled by the number of men who, as you say, have not cultivated inner life, haven't built the toolkit, and then are going to find themselves just exposed to, I did the right thing. I followed the path, I built the career, I did all the stuff, but then one day all that went away, and now I can't figure out who I am. I can't locate myself, and coming towards an age where naturally, as you said, children grow up and they move on with their life, and it's a frightening prospect, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, and I think it triggers something that I'm aware of in me, and I'd like your point of view on it, that this tendency to look back towards your strength, or to look back towards your youth.
Yes.
Of the way I used to be, or the things I used to do, or even the masculinity and sexuality. It's like you're looking towards something that actually doesn't exist anymore.
Yes.
And has the potential to be incredibly destructive.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you're starting to step into a zone of trying to reclaim something which is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think for me the process for me is this awareness. It's like, okay, I'm feeling feelings. I'm feeling this stuff going on. I'm feeling a wobbliness about my vocation and where I'm going, and what's going to happen in the future.
Yep.
And also an instability about my self-image.
Right.
It's like if I'm not,
Yes.
the vocation, then what am I? And working through the process of actually starting to settle in or be satisfied with, this is a present age as it was all through my life. It's like it's a natural thing that happens.
Yes.
That my body doesn't function as well as it used to anymore.
Right.
I'm not as sharp as I was. I'm not as hungry for exploits and actually moving into a place where it's okay for the reference point to shift. Like you don't have to maintain what used to be. In fact, you can't.
Yeah.
Because life just rolls on.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. That whole concept of that shifting reference point, I think that's an important one for men. Well, it's important for everybody, but for men going through new phases of their life, new chapters in family, new decades in their age, etc. I've done, as you know, a lot of pre-marriage counselling, in my vocational life. And one of the things that I would talk to young couples about all the time is I say, get ready to embrace the idea that the person you marry is not the person you will be married to in 10 years, 20, on the basis of we're all still growing. We're all still changing. And that concept you're saying around how men will sometimes, they try to hark back to something more comfortable or more familiar or more desirable, an old
or
version of
exciting,
themselves.
more exciting, yeah.
And I don't think there is enough conversation and education and organic mentorship for men around this idea that you're going to keep changing. As much as you might hate it, your body's going to not cooperate forever, and like you say, you're probably going to have a reduction in that appetite to go and change the world, and whether you like it or not, you've got to be able to maintain a sense of who am I now, as opposed to, I used to be a different version and I've got to let that guy go. Do you think that's even a conversational point for most men to accept that that's going on and to keep on learning to reposition yourself?
Short answer, no.
Yeah.
I think we rarely talk about it.
Right.
It's a rare conversation to, for a guy to sit down and actually bounce off another guy, like looking for a reference point. It's or even like in you mentioned marriage, like in a marriage, it's like, where are we at now?
Yes.
Like I feel sorry for my wife. She has to wake up every morning next to an old guy, and,
who looks like Richard Gere. Look at him.
I know. What do you say? His daggy older brother.
Yeah. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this content, I'd love you to subscribe to my newsletter. I call it Original Masculinity Letters to Men. I'm writing to inspire you and encourage you on your masculine journey on the way to recovering your masculine heart. If you'd love to be part of that, there's a link in the description below. Click on that, and that's how you can join and get these newsletter episodes that come out regularly.
But so the like the pause in the conversation of where are we at now?
Yes,
and then moving on to I guess you could call it the delight of where we're at.
Right.
The things that I had to pay attention to, I don't have to pay attention to anymore.
Yes.
Like building a family and
right.
Like generating, like finding a home or settling a home, generating all that sort of stuff. It doesn't apply anymore. And neither do I want to sort of step off into the void of, the perpetual holiday. Like I'm not ready. And I don't think any guy is actually ready for the checking out of, I'm going to retire and play golf or, drag a caravan around for the rest of my life. I think there's a place where there's a pause, and it's like seeing where we're at, seeing what where the desires of our heart are with regards to what is fulfilling for a man.
Yes.
And then starting to cultivate that with a view of what is my purpose into the 60s? What's my purpose into the 70s and 80s?
Yes.
That actually starts to get a life of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the point you're making around guys who learn to sort of bounce off each other conversationally is so vital. As you know, because we've talked about it on the channel, I'm getting ready soon to launch a live show. Which will be hosted here. For those of you who don't know where we are, we're in Camden in New South Wales in Australia, and if you're within driving distance of there, you might want to be part of this weekly live show. But a huge thing for me is to get guys in the same room, because I think something powerful happens, especially if you get guys who are different circumstances, different journeys, even different age brackets, like I'm hoping you'll be there for some of those shows, and I'm looking forward to just watching what happens naturally and powerfully when you get, maybe a guy in his 50s who talks to a guy in his 30s, and the guy in his 30s has got 3 young kids versus the guy in his 50s who got kids who've moved out of home now, and just the learning environment that doesn't have to be structured and probably shouldn't be. But just that chance to be in the same space, in the same room, and share journey, and without having to be formal about picking up wisdom and lessons, it's actually happening naturally. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see that. And actually, when I think about the friendships I have with men, it's such a vital thing. Like when I say vital, for me, it's like this deliciousness of life,
right.
like knocking around with younger guys, and for me, the age I'm at, I still, I think I always will love being strong. Like I have this sort of internal dialogue of having myself ready for adventure,
Right.
To get out beyond the boundaries a little bit and just explore things.
Yes.
And, I love being around younger men because they're just naturally stronger and faster and
Right.
and just having that, coming up against. The same with, having older guys who, I can look at, where they are 15, 20 years ahead of me.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, that's what that looks like.
Yeah,
particular
absolutely.
friends of mine who are, struggling with health issues and yet still are strong and vital
Yes.
and present in their
Totally.
own life. So yeah,
it's very powerful, isn't it? It's the kind of context that I think if you overwork to arrange it, it's not real, it's sterile.
Yeah.
But if you can somehow facilitate it in a more natural way, it seems like you don't need to do a whole lot else. Just put men in a room where there's where there's a reasonable willingness to be real.
Yeah,
And
I think so.
it doesn't have to be a deep and meaningful talk every time.
Yeah.
But if there's a general willingness to be a real person and not just put up, the manufactured mask, it seems like very powerful things happen all on their own, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. And I think one of the aspects of it, a guy will never admit to it, but you always see the bravado when a guy doesn't feel safe.
Yes.
So if he's in an environment where, he starts to open up and gets, criticised or belittled, we just naturally shut down and go back to the facade.
Right,
and,
right. Yep.
Looks good, smells good.
Yeah.
So and that takes a bit of an art for, guys who are, calling the gathering together, but also guys coming into it of can I dare to be vulnerable?
Yeah, right.
Like, can I actually let the guard down and step into a space where it might be uncomfortable or it might hurt a bit, or it might be perceived the wrong way.
Yep, absolutely.
That's always a tough call. And, I come across it, even in my vocation. It's like the portrayal of strength and, knowing what to do and, nothing phases me.
Right.
And you just have to scratch the surface and it's like there's a lot of pain there.
Yeah, totally. And my experience has shown me that most guys, I can't quantify that with a percentage, but observationally, most guys in my experience would love to have that if they could find it, if they could have the basic tools to engage it, and if they're not at a point yet where they've kind of given up on it. I had an interesting experience this past week with, this channel and, people put comments on and different things, and I learned a new acronym. I must confess I had to go and Google it because I read it there. I thought, I don't know what that means. And so somebody had put a comment on one of the episodes on this channel and they put the acronym in capital letters MGTOW. And I thought, what's that? So I went and Googled it. And the acronym means men going their own way.
Okay.
And I actually felt really heavy and saddened by it because I think there's a couple of expressions of that. Right, I think for some men who are, men going their own way, it could actually be a good thing because they're like, okay, I can't just put my whole life on hold, waiting to appease everybody, right? But I think the greater portion of that, my guess is that it's actually the jadedness of experience where men have been through trauma, maybe been through a divorce, maybe suffering alienation from their children or disappointments in the workspace. And they've reached a point where they can't muster the energy for the fight anymore.
Yeah.
And someone actually put a related comment where they said, yep, that's me. I don't go out anymore. I'm not trying to date anymore. I stay home and play video games.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with doing that except when you start to explore, but how did you get to that place? Like, why did you reach that conclusion that you thought there's no point? And to me, it feels like the lion's share of that conclusion is I've been damaged, I'm disappointed, I'm a bit jaded, I couldn't be bothered anymore. And it just that comment, it really saddened me because I thought as men, that's not what we were designed for. You know, that's not us at our peak, I don't think. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's a fascinating, like when you hear, you know, I don't go out anymore, or I've closed myself down.
Yes.
It's like, you know, there's the surface layer, or there's the communication, but then there's the wondering of, you know, what's lying underneath that of you know, the woundedness or the trauma that hasn't found a way to be able to be unpacked, and you know, like I'm hearing a duality there. I think, you know, men going their own way. Like for me, there's a joy in, you know, it's like curiosity and exploration on my own.
Right.
Like I spend a lot of time on the water. I'll go, you know, kilometres out into the middle of the water just to be away from everyone, you know, and to sit on the swell and watch the sky. And you know, I can do that for hours on end.
Totally. And I agree with you. That part of the expression is fantastic.
Yeah, and
that's
for me,
healthy,
it's
right?
life-giving. Yeah, it's a solitude that actually resets me.
Yes.
And also aware of the woundedness, you know, like the shortcomings that I have, or the things that have happened in my world or week or day or whatever, that that untended to, or even not even brought out into the open, will just eat away at my soul, you know, and so I don't say things that need to be said, or I don't connect with guys, you know, when I know it's healthy too, and that whole withdrawing thing starts to take place. So so there's this duality of you know, the guys who are, you know, shutting themselves away. It's like, where's the chink? But I think then the guys who are in proximity, it's like, you know, not so much mounting a rescue mission, but just having this eye for stepping into the space of there is a way to communicate. There is a way to articulate your pain.
Yes.
There is a place where you can actually, you know, bring your trauma or your woundedness into light. Yep. And even that in itself brings about healing.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not discounting, you know, counselling or, you know, seeing a psychologist or, you know, getting prayer with a friend or whatever. Like there's whole processes that are formalised.
Yes.
It needs to, like the stepping into. It needs to have the stepping into or the connection with other guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you sort of you've landed on something that I wanted to go to next anyway, which is this idea that, you know, that men going their own way thing, right? So there's a couple of expressions there. As you said, there's the guy who's like, I need to explore. I need to do things that are good for my soul. 100%. I'm totally on board with that. Then there's this other more sad expression of guys who perhaps that they've given up. They've reached a point where they can't stick at it, or, you know, they've been damaged somehow. And those kind of guys need some kind of help. And where I'd like to go in our conversation is to maybe separate for a few minutes some of the formal things from the informal and bring it back and apply it to our friendship. You know, because I agree, like if a person needs a counsellor, great, go see a counsellor.
Yeah.
You know, it might do nothing, but it might do something. Yep. Or you need to see the psychologist, or you need to go consult your GP. Great, do those things. You need to reconnect with your faith and get involved in a church community or whatever. Just do those formalised things. But I want to take a few minutes to unpack what you and I have probably never talked about, and that is along the line of trying to explore, for the sake of guys watching and listening, trying to explore, why has this worked? And what I mean is, you know, we've been friends for about 25 years now.
Long time, yeah.
Since, you know, we were away at a conference event together and you challenged me to a swimming race in a swimming pool.
Yes, I remember.
Me not knowing that you were involved in ocean swims and swimming events, and I thought, oh, please, I'll beat this old bloke in the pool. Thrashed as hard as I could and looked up to see you already hand on the wall at the end of the pool. I thought,
that was fun.
I've been punked here for sure. Anyway, but, you know, we've had this friendship that has endured working together, volunteering together, been through some fairly difficult storms where we were the problem solvers in other contexts. Both of us individually been through some difficult personal storms. And I'm not sure whether to throw out my perspective now or later, but I do obviously want to get your view on why has this friendship worked, and in a context of how could this be a lesson to other guys? Because you and I, we have had this ability to be ourselves, right? Because we're different, but not have that be problematic that we're different. It's actually been complementary.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've had this ability to talk about anything and everything and be able to bounce from the very serious and the very important to the super light-hearted and frivolous.
Messing around, yeah.
So I might keep my thoughts until you share.
Sure.
So, but why has it worked? And in a reflective moment of, is it possible for other guys to unearth some things that could work? Because my whole point here is the friendship has been a source of strength, I believe,
Absolutely,
two-way,
yeah.
right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And helped us to navigate seasons. But what is it about the friendship that has worked from your view? Never talked about this, have we?
No, we haven't. We've talked about just about everything else.
Yeah.
I think. Let's start off the conversation. We were thrown together in a common cause. Like we were dealing with some deep issues and vastly unpleasant issues.
Yes.
So being in a common space, dealing with an issue.
Yep.
I think we travelled to a place where there wasn't the luxury of self-protection, or there wasn't the luxury of bravado.
Right.
It's like we had to sort some stuff out,
Yes.
and it was constant, and it was like an onslaught. So I think there was a tempering of our relationship in we just didn't, I know for me, I just didn't have either the mental capacity or the physical capacity to put up another wall, and negotiate, keeping you at arm's length.
Yes.
So you saw me at my worst, or you saw me when I was hard pressed, and reaching for resources.
Yes.
So I think, I think that, when you take away the actual circumstance, it's like I think what was underlying for us in forging our friendship was just the removal of the dance. Removal of the game playing, or the the charades, or whatever you want to call it, of the facade that I'm presenting to you.
Yes.
I knew I didn't have to sort of wade through the facade to see where Andrew was at.
Right.
It's like, there he is, lying on the ground, bleeding to death.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do we leave him there? Do we?
Yeah. So how can guys forge that? I think, having this awareness of, am I presenting something which is a falsity? Like, am I giving half truths? Am I giving half answers?
Yes.
Am I responding to a question and talking about the things that look good or smell good?
Yes.
But no, there's an underlying darkness, or there's an underlying flaw that I'm just going to keep hidden.
Yeah.
So
that's. I had no clue what you'd say in response to that.
Neither did I. So here we are.
But that first thought you're giving there, I think, it's very broad in what could be unpacked, but quite powerful actually. And I hope helpful to guys listening and watching. It's maybe a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing, that old debate: what was first, the egg or the chicken, etc. And what I mean is, like you rightly said, we were. Not without our agreement, but we were somewhat forced into a context, an outward-facing context of problem solving and, trudging through issues and challenges that weren't necessarily of our own creation, but we got forced together. And when you were talking, the imagery I had was that whole shoulder to shoulder, marching towards a cause thing. And I do think that's lacking for a lot of guys today, is they're so isolated, or the only outward facing things they are dealing with is their own things. They don't have a commonality of cause to go to war over. But we did have that. And I don't know the answer to my own question, but I wonder whether that being forged together in a cause required of us to very quickly, do away with the dance and the posing and the pretense, as you said, or were we maybe already potentially well suited for doing away with that stuff? And so I don't really know, but I think those two are tied somehow. Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I think, what do you call it? The paring away, whether it was circumstance or whether we preempted it just by our very natures.
Yes.
It still remains that
Yes.
this place of dwelling in the truth.
Yes.
Like dwelling in the ugliness of this is how it is.
Yep.
And not for the sake of, dumping all your inner mechanisms on someone else, or there's a respect towards the other person.
Yes.
But there's also this openness of here I am.
Right.
And I think here I am in the midst of working it out. Not here I am, look at the mess, it's all yours.
Yes.
But I'm working through issues of life.
Yes.
And I want to be seen, and I want to see you, so that we can actually get traction in a relationship that actually has a foundation.
Yeah.
I think when you dwell in half truths, or you don't bring it all to the table, like whether you know it or not, there's no foundation to stand on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Look, the fact that we're actually taking a moment to look back on it and try to unpick, what worked and why did it happen the way it did, I'm concluding that whole thing of a war to fight together was a big deal. And in the sense of there is something about a cause that matters that forges brotherhood. Like I've actually said to people over the years many times, and you and I have probably, I think from memory, have said this as well, which is through different seasons where, our own personal lives have sort of been closer, have drifted, our families, whatever, just the different seasons of life. My own conclusion about you has been, and this is my self-talk, says, Doug will always be my brother because of the, insert your own expletive, that we had to walk through together.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a brotherhood that was forged there because of the cause. That may or may not have been as strong without it. We'll never know. But I'm likening it to the fact that, men who talk about, at a low level, men who achieve something in a team sport context, there's a shared journey and a brotherhood. I mean, the ultimate echelon is men who do have to go to war together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a forged brotherhood there because it's like, my life's in his hands.
Yeah.
I cannot not count on him.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it seems to me that, what you've identified there, that commonality of cause to face at has been a big deal. Is that something you reckon that other guys can try to identify for themselves?
I think it is. And, and I hear you, you're landing on the going to war or the, even the sport. I think... let's not go to war. The damage is
metaphorical. Let's keep it metaphorical.
I think, and I think even looking for, a fight to fight or a cause to engage in, is healthy. Like it's the looking out from you.
Yes.
I think also, I think, like when you look at men in this age. No one's escaped. Like we are all up to our knees or our necks of varying degrees of, in the mess.
Yes.
In the stress of this age, the culture we live in, the way, work's wired, like guys are actually suffering.
Yep.
And you don't need to go very far in talking to a guy to identify here's the issue. So I think... like beyond the, finding the commonality in a cause is the looking towards another guy and actually identifying, you know what, I have the capacity to carry my brother. Like I actually have and we, you know, in the context of what we were dealing with, there was an awareness in me. It's like I've got the capacity to not totally carry Andrew, but like I can take some of the load, you know, and we would deal with stuff, and then we'd debrief, or we'd have a beer, or we'd have a you know, a walk or a conversation, and it's like there was capacity in me for you to unpack yourself. You know? And I think that's the context of guys moving forward in relationship. It's like, you know, where's my wound? Where's my brokenness? Where's the thing that I need to unpack? And in the same context, where's my capacity for whoever else is in my world? So there's this back and forth of vulnerability and also strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, hopefully helpful for guys watching and listening is an encouragement that I don't think you have to have all of your mates or even any of your mates where they're the exact same version of a man as you.
No.
You know, because we get tricked into believing that, and maybe that comes through our school life and then where we happen to land in our working life. And, you know, a lot of guys believe, you know, I resonate with these guys because we love the same sport. And that's not wrong. Like, common interest is great. But the point I'm getting at is you and I are quite different, you know.
Absolutely,
in the sense that looking in from the outside, if you wanted to use some generalizations, you're way more right brain than I am. I'm left brain predominantly. You know, you have had for a lot longer period of time more of an appreciation for the creative, and I've been more around the analytical. And there's a lot of reasons why people would say that friendship wouldn't work. You know, I'm thinking of a funny time when we were overseas somewhere, and do you remember we were playing a game of golf, and I was fixated on playing the game of golf, and you weren't playing. You were just in the cart riding along with me. But every now and then we'd stop, and you'd jump off and take a photo of some of the flowers with your phone. And I love that story so much because it's like there's so much difference in what we're looking at in the world and who we are. But it never was a problem.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah.
And a lot of reasons why theoretically it shouldn't work, but I believe that one of the reasons that it has worked as a strong friendship is we've both possessed an absence of fear or a courage to just say stuff how it is.
Yeah, I like that.
You know, and a willingness, I guess, it's a bit generic, but it's still true, a willingness to engage. And just say stuff how it is. You know, Doug, how you going? Well, I'm not good. I'm pretty crap, actually. Oh, why is that? You know, and then we would, no masks, just a willingness. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, a willingness. I think you've touched on something there that is huge for me, actually, and it has taken, I would say, nearly 40 years for me to unpack.
Right.
And that, you know, you touched on my creativity, and there's a propensity for me. I love to play. Like, I will just play. And
you're the mad scientist. You do experiments.
Yeah, I do. I do on myself. Mostly.
On yourself, exactly.
But it's this part of my nature that is untethered. I just love to explore. I love to play. I love to wander off in my mind. You know, we were talking earlier about the imagination and what's the function of the imagination. For me, that's just a delight of just going down these rabbit holes. I have found through the years that part of my nature was actually shut down because of criticism and judgment and particularly guys and father figures who just couldn't come to grips with. You know, here's a man who loves art and loves you know, creativity and has softer virtues, I guess. And it's only been in my latter life, and our relationship has facilitated it, of actually having guys around me who I feel held with.
Right.
So there's a bunch of guys in my world who actually know that that's the way I'm wired.
Right.
And and don't necessarily need to understand it and don't necessarily need to dive into it because it's not their shtick, but have the capacity to actually hold me in the midst of my creativity, so that I can actually explore to the extent of it.
Yes.
And I think that's been a hallmark of our relationship. You know, that you know, you are an intense human being. You are very cognitive and structured and think things through. And it's like there's an aspect of me that I can appreciate that. You know, give it about 45 minutes and I'm exhausted. You know, but it's like this ability to step into your space and drill down with you and bat back and forward and and it's like the joy of actually holding you in the way you are. And then for you to actually flow back towards me, you know, when I'm needing to check out or, you know, going a little bit right-brained. It's like knowing that is, it's not critiqued. It's not put in a box. It's actually allowed to flourish.
Totally.
I think it is actually, the more I think of it, is actually an extraordinary thing. It doesn't happen a lot in the culture.
Doesn't happen anywhere near enough. And I think a lot of guys do themselves a disservice by not engaging in that way, in the sense that, as we know, in male peer groups, there's a lot of conformity pressure. You know, if you're in a group of tradie friends, well, then it's almost like you're predefined. Or if you're in a white collar peer group, or you're in it's quite childish actually. It's very high school. Like, oh, you're in the sporty group, or you're in the art group.
Sure,
And I think we do ourselves a disservice by doing our mates a disservice by not letting them be the way they were created to be, you know, with their own strengths and all the rest of it. And I think for most men, the conformity pressure that flows out of us is actually an insecurity about ourselves. And it's because some guys, they haven't figured out who they are yet, so they've adopted a type. And because they've adopted a type, they can only enjoy the company of others who've adopted the same type.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas for you and I, for, you know, happy stance reasons, I can't speak for you, I can speak for me. It's never bothered me that you were wired different to me. I've actually enjoyed, you know, I say this respectfully, but some of the weirdness of how you think. And what I mean is certainly not unarticulate or unintelligent, but you think in certain ways that when I hear of it, my brain goes, don't compute. But in that moment, I don't then reject it. In that moment, I just sit there and I look at it and I go, well, that's interesting. So I think maybe as well we've shared a dual permission to not put conformity pressure on each other. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that we don't have to look like anything in particular, or we don't have to have even commonality.
No,
you know, and I think, you know, our friendship is such, like, we're at different ages, we've got families at different stages. Like we do go apart from each other and live our lives, and then come back together. And there's there's the joy of you know, reconnection and seeing where each other's at. And not having to be in each other's pocket. The whole conformity thing is a fascinating thing, or the pressure to present something. You know, it does make me wonder, you know, the duality of you know, getting back to safe spaces, of, you know, safe spaces for guys to actually step out of the presentation and actually think about, you know, who am I, or you know, what are my leanings? What are the things that I actually enjoy to do? You know, because I do know, for me, like, part of, you know, stepping into creativity for me is a huge energy spend. You know, it takes a lot of energy. Funnily enough, it takes a lot of energy to be free. You know, because there's so many pressures, like just natural cultural pressures to do particular things, you know, to actually pause long enough to give your brain space to actually be creative. You know, like, even that phrase there is sometimes hours of just reconfiguring. So, you know, for guys who are not familiar with the process. There is an energy of coming up against. I've been this way for years.
Yes.
Where am I? What am I doing now?
Yes.
There's an energy even in being present. It's
Yep.
like, what am I feeling?
Right.
What am I thinking?
Totally.
How am I reacting to this person?
Yep.
And culturally, we're just not trained.
No, we're not.
Just not
No,
trained
not at all.
to even be present. Like,
Yes.
I'm feeling like we've now sort of hit a groove now where we're present with each other.
Yep.
It takes training to actually stop yourself from
Yes.
going into the rote,
Yes.
or stop yourself from going into, well, this is how I've always
That's
been,
right.
or this is how I show up.
Yes.
And then takes courage to say, I've shown up this way for 25 years or
Yes.
20 years or 10 years. It doesn't ring true.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if there's, not wanting to put ourselves in the position of guru, because that's not the
Well,
point.
you can. I'll abstain. Thanks.
Mutual abstinence. That's not the point, but I think there is something that can be learned for other guys who are hearing something and identifying something of a need in their own journey. And I think it's a two-way thing where one participant can choose a version of fearlessness, which means, I'm going to say what I think. Or if someone asks me, how am I really going? I'm going to tell them. And be ready for the thought, it might not be received. But that could just be a sign to you. That might not be a guy that you can walk 30 years with. And that's okay. Because there will be men in every man's life who are short-term friendships, who are a bit more distal.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that you don't sift through the variance and find one or two blokes who are more like brothers than friends unless you get the combo of one side has to be a little bit fearless and the other side's got to be permission giving and go, you can hang your mess out in front of me.
Be receptive.
And I don't have to solve it all for you.
Yeah.
You can just say it.
Yeah.
And I'm good. It's fine. It seems when that combo happens, to me, it removes or it breaks the mold that we're told is the best mold, which is just common interests. I was thinking about it just then. You and I have never been to a sporting event together.
No.
Ever.
No, we have.
Or did
I think
we?
we have.
Have we?
And
Am I
your,
having
your
memory
team
loss?
won by about 35 points to 0, and I was like,
Did you come to a football game with
let's
me, did you?
forget that. Yeah. First and last.
I can't even remember. Maybe one, right? So my point is, we don't go to the footy. I mean, I love sport, as you know. I love. You could give two poo emojis about that, right? And you're secure in that, and I'm happy that you're secure in that. And there's no forced, merging. It's just let it be what it is. And so we actually have an unusual lack of common interests in that sense. And I'm hoping that that's maybe a hint to guys who are watching and listening that you don't just have to gravitate towards common interest.
Yeah.
Because I think there's the risk of missing out on some other connections that could be outside the scope of your common interests.
Absolutely.
Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. That, the having to conform. And I think even like the curiosity towards, we were talking about change, getting older. And for me, it's coming into different friendship groups as well. The exploration of, I guess even the looking for, like I'm not looking for commonality anymore. I'm actually, I'm looking for the breadth and depth.
Right.
And I think you touched on it. The both the fearlessness and the permission or the connectedness.
Yes.
So exploring. And I guess it's actually maintaining this sense of curiosity of like being aware of the cost of it, the energy spend and the pain of, putting yourself, making yourself vulnerable or relating who you are and not having it received or having it misunderstood.
Yes.
And then just the sheer joy of finding guys who actually have not even the same wavelength. It's like they receive the wavelength that you're
Yes.
at. You know,
Yep.
I think that's, well, when you drill down to it, it's like that's the deliciousness of life.
Yeah, totally.
You know, that you know, most of the time you're going to come up, you know, with nothing in your hands.
That's right.
But then you'll stumble across a gem.
100%.
You know, and that's just the joy of living, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And there's, I think about this often. I can't find a single thing or experience or whatever in life that is best or better on your own. It's all amplified in a shared context. You know, I'm not suggesting people don't ever have solitude or silence. I'm a big advocate for that. But the connectedness of journey is huge. Interesting. When you were talking there, I was reminded of, you know, I said I did this podcast with 3 guys in their 20s recently. I was really encouraged by how smart their questions were. You know, because as older guys, you know, old bastards like we are, there is a temptation to look at younger generations and wonder, you know, do they talk about this? Do they even care? Are they dismissive of this? And you know, in full disclosure, I handpicked those guys in their 20s, and I know them, but still, I was super encouraged by the types of questions and conversational points that they were raising. And a lot of it was around this idea of the need to search for answers and to not be presumptuous, but to, they're even talking about things like, you know, the key to finding good mentors and how to forecast what's ahead on the road and to prepare for that. It was quite interesting, actually, because
I love that. Yeah.
it's easy to assume that none of them are thinking about it. But I think maybe they are.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Actually, it reminds me. Well, I love it. I think maybe it's something that actually crosses the generations.
Right.
You know, that it is. It's a human need. Like it's a human need to have mentors. You know, like I think about father figures, you know, who mentored me all the way through my life. And funnily enough, just yesterday had coffee with a great friend who's nearly 70. And during the conversation, he said, "You know what? I think I found my next mentor."
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
He's nearly 70.
He's nearly 70 himself, and
that's
he's
awesome.
found a guy who's in his late 80s. And
That's
it's
so
like,
good.
Yeah, and it, I mean, it's one of the phrases I've had all my life is like, you know, is when I grow up, I want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
You know, so the fact that 20-year-olds are doing it, I think it's something that actually flows right through the ages and keeps us alive. You know, this looking towards, you know, who's gone before us, who's beside us.
Yes.
You know, who am I beside? You know, like this cultivation of connection and it's not so much vision forward. It's like because you can be so focused on your vision, you actually lose connection with the present.
Right.
But it's like this leaning into there's more.
Yes.
You know, there's more to cultivate. There's more to learn.
Yes.
You know, we can broaden out our emotions. We can have, you know, we can hold multiple relationships.
Yeah.
We're not constrained.
And it lasts a lifetime.
Until it doesn't.
Until you're gone. In the sense of, well, there's, as you know, there's so much emphasis on what you do and who you are through to about age 40. And then supposedly, all right, well, you don't need to learn anymore. You don't need to just let it slide, let it be.
You get stuck.
But that example of that guy, nearly 70, I've just found my next mentor. That's great.
Yeah, and all around that is this cultivation of who he wants to be in the next 10 to 15 years, you know,
awesome.
Where he wants to go. Yeah, for me, that's just great. It sparks me up. And it just counters the thing that you do come across, you know, of you know, old guys getting together and talking about their ailments, you know, bunions hurting.
Yes.
You know?
My feet are sore.
Yeah. Whereas there's, you know, the counter to that is the like the common pursuit of life. I think the common pursuit of you know of both receiving and giving life.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. We're almost out of time.
Sure.
Let me make a collective, grandiose, conclusive statement, and then you tell me if you agree, you disagree, pick it apart,
right.
and let's spend a couple of minutes on it, right?
Sure.
we started out by talking about this idea of connectedness and breaking the silence and building relationships with other men and all the rest of it, and purpose and navigating new chapters and seasons in life for men. Here's my huge conclusive statement. It seems to me that all of those things, purpose and identity and mission, and all of these things that we talk about as a normal part of the masculine journey, it seems to me that almost in its entirety, those things are utterly irrelevant in isolation, in the sense of if you experience life in isolation and you don't live in a connected fashion, what point all those other things? Is that too strong? I know it's nuanced.
It's a strong statement, yeah.
And the obvious inference I'm trying to draw there is guys have got to break out of an isolated bubble if they're any hope of living the kind of life they'd like to live. Yeah. Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, look, I think you're right, and even in that, it's like I understand the isolation, like I understand the retreating, and I also understand the sense of safety in it. The sadness about it is it's a diminishing. It's not an expansiveness. So I think. And you can exist, like people exist their whole lives, traveling through in isolation. So it's possible to do.
Yes.
And my mind thinks back to the guy who, whatever that acronym was, playing the video games. Like he doesn't go out anymore. He just plays video games. It's like, society and technology has given us an out.
Yes.
I think that as human beings, we are wired to interact. Like we have all the faculties, to interact, and there is, there is a sweetness in the interaction as well as the pain.
Yes.
There's a duality of it.
Yes.
And the risk is the getting hurt. The risk is the damage to one another. The risk is coming across, people who do abuse, who take advantage of, so there's this duality of the excitement of stepping out and the fear of being damaged.
Yes.
I think it's a long answer to a very short question, of that to find the face, like to find the interface of life, we must, as human beings, step beyond the fear. Like we must come against the fact that, even as men, who are strong and present as brave, we're afraid.
Yep.
We're a bunch of little boys who are afraid, of getting knocked down, of getting hurt, of getting wounded in our emotions, and that's okay. Then the traveling through of who is around me,
right?
Who can see my pain,
yep.
And move with me,
yep.
And I think, to step fully into our humanity, it is a collective thing.
Yes,
it is a momentum that is gathered with multiple people.
Yes,
and it is exploration of our just. Like our myriad of differences, like we've explored one relationship here. And even in that, it's like there's stuff that we've just never got to.
Yep.
You multiply that out by our wives and our children, and then our friendship group. And it's like there's just a myriad of people who we can explore the different nuances.
Yes.
And there is the mosaic of life.
Right.
Right there is the gloriousness of why we exist.
Yes.
With one another and for one another, and in relationship with one another. That's the life.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your response. I love the little reminder in there. I was being a little bit deliberately provocative with my conclusion. I do still hold, that view that whatever is good in life is best and better in connection and in relationship and all the rest of it. But I absolutely take on board your point that it's not that cut and dry. It's not that black and white. And I think to a certain degree there is a certain resonance that people can feel in the alternative to that. And I've experienced that myself even. You know, I'm somewhere in the next month or two, I'm getting ready to write a newsletter article to the men who subscribe. And the title of the article will probably be My Friend Depression.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a co-writer. Just let me know.
You know, which is obviously alluding to the fact that it's a real challenge for
Yeah,
people. But also,
absolutely.
I want to hone in on this nuanced experience that you can get to a point where you make friends with depression. You make friends with isolation. You make friends. You know this because we've talked about it. I've had seasons in life where I've made great friends in my head with the fantasy of a small life. You know, go find a little farm somewhere and build a fire
So you
and
shoot rabbits off the porch. Or
yeah,
something.
yeah, and have a gun and ignore the world.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong in isolation, but my journey towards that is it is a darker side of life's journey where you do sometimes want to retreat and you do want to tap out and say, I've had enough. And so I'm going to write this article about my friend depression. And I think what you've brought out there is a highly valid truth that people do vacillate between trying to engage, you know, the vitality of connection, but also coping with the reality of sometimes it feels cozier to make friends with the failed attempt at that, you know, and I think that's important for us to validate because a lot of people experience that on their journey without pressure and without recourse. I hope I can count on you to join us as a panelist on the live show.
Oh, sure. It's always fun.
At least occasionally. I think you'll add a tremendous amount to it. And so those of you who are still watching at this point of the episode, congratulations for still being here.
You
but
made it, yeah.
The live show is coming from this venue here at Baren's Restaurant in Camden very soon, and we will put up details and notifications about that. But I'd love to hear from you in the comments around friendship, around connection. What's your view on this? Maybe have you struggled with this? What have you heard that's been helpful? Drop it in the comments. I'd love you to do that. Maybe if you've got a mate who would benefit from listening in on a conversation like this one, why don't you share the episode with him? And we'll keep this journey going of talking about the masculine journey. Hopefully see you on another video real soon.